My mother chose for me a wonderful, wealthy, but mute husband. After our lavish wedding with more than 100 guests, I came home with my new husband. But as soon as the front door closed behind us, he spoke, and what he said. The door clicked softly, cutting off the sounds of the street, the distant echoes of the wedding celebration still going on at the restaurant. We were alone now, in the hallway of my new apartment. Our apartment, as my mother had reminded me for the past 3 months. I slipped off my shoes, and my feet gratefully touched the cool parquet floor. A whole day in those white stilettos had been torture, but my mother had insisted on that exact pair. "Valentina, you must look impeccable," she said when I tried to protest that I prefer something more comfortable. Esteban stood beside me, unbuttoning his perfectly tailored suit jacket. He was a tall, handsome man of 38, with refined features and attentive brown eyes. His hands were well-groomed, with long fingers that moved gracefully when he used sign language to express himself. In the 6 months we'd known each other, I had grown accustomed to his silence, to the way he communicated with gestures, notes, and glances. My mother said it was a small price to pay for such a respectable, successful husband. I turned to him, about to sign whether he wanted some tea, as I had done countless times before. But before I could raise my hands, Esteban looked me straight in the eyes and said, in a clear, deep voice, "Valentina, we need to talk, seriously talk, about what's really going on." I froze. My heart skipped several beats, then began pounding twice as hard. My hands went numb, my knees weakened, and I grabbed the wall to keep from collapsing. He was speaking. My husband, who was supposedly mute since childhood due to some trauma, was speaking, clearly, distinctly, his voice slightly husky but entirely normal. I opened my mouth to say something, but no sound came out. Esteban took a step toward me, reaching out his hand, but I recoiled instinctively. There was something like guilt, or pity, in his eyes, but he didn't back away. "I'm sorry," he said, and there was real remorse in his voice. "I know this is a shock. Please, sit down. I'll explain everything. You have to know the truth, who I really am, why all of this happened, and why your mother." I didn't let him finish. I darted into the bathroom, slammed the door, and locked it, then sat down on the edge of the tub, trembling, tears spilling down my cheeks, ruining the carefully applied wedding makeup. Esteban wasn't mute. All this time, he could speak. All this time, he had been lying to me, pretending, playing a part. And my mother, did she know? Had my own mother been part of this deception? Thoughts raced chaotically through my head. I tried to recall every meeting, every moment when Esteban had spoken with gestures, when he'd written notes, when I'd seen that sadness in his eyes I had attributed to his condition. Was it all a lie? Every gesture, every look, a carefully crafted performance? Footsteps sounded outside the door, then a soft knock. "Valentina, please, come out. I understand you're in shock. I know you feel deceived, but let me explain. Give me a chance to tell you the truth." I said nothing. I couldn't. My throat was tight, strangled by panic. Instead, I stared at my reflection in the mirror above the sink, a bride in a luxurious white gown that cost more than my yearly salary as a literature teacher, with a neat updo that had taken 3 hours to perfect, now ruined, mascara running down her cheeks, lips trembling. I looked like a ghost of my own happiness that, apparently, had never really existed. I was 27. Most of my peers were already married, some had children. I lived with my mother in our 3-bedroom apartment on the outskirts of the city, teaching literature at school and quietly dreaming of a family of my own, of someone who would love me for who I was, without conditions or expectations. My mother, Carmen, had always been a woman of strong will. After my father's death 8 years ago, she'd become even more controlling, even more convinced she was always right. She decided how I dressed, where I worked, who I spoke to. I tried to resist, to assert my independence, but always hit the same wall of incomprehension. "You don't understand how the world works," she would say, shaking her head. "I just want what's best for you. I don't want you to repeat my mistakes." Her mistakes, as I understood them, were that she had married my father for love rather than for security. They had spent 23 years together, and I remembered them as happy, affectionate. But after his death, My mother seemed to rewrite their history, convincing herself that if my father had been wealthier, more successful, he could have afforded better treatment, and things might have turned out differently. 6 months ago, she came home, eyes shining, and announced she had found the perfect husband for me, Esteban Moreno, the son of an old acquaintance of hers, a successful businessman who owned a chain of appliance stores. 38, never married, educated, respectable, well off. And then, after a pause, she added, he's been mute since childhood, after an accident. But that shouldn't bother you, she hurried to add when she saw my startled expression. He writes beautifully, knows sign language perfectly. And most importantly, Valentina, he's looking for a calm, homely wife, someone who will make him comfortable. You're perfect for that. I tried to protest, to say I didn't want a husband arranged for me, that I wanted to meet someone naturally, to fall in love. But my mother was immovable. She had already arranged the meeting, already made the plans. And deep down, if I was honest, I was tired of resisting. Tired of loneliness. Tired of my coworkers' looks when they spoke about their families. Tired of acquaintances asking, so, when will you get married? Our first meeting took place in a cafe downtown. I arrived early, nervous, twisting a napkin in my hands. Then I saw him. Tall, well-dressed, with classic features, he entered the cafe and looked around. Our eyes met, and he smiled, a warm, sincere smile that stirred something inside me. He came over, greeted me with a polite nod, and used gestures to show he was pleased to meet me. I smiled awkwardly, unsure how to interact with a man who couldn't speak. But Esteban seemed to sense my discomfort. He pulled out a notebook and pen. Don't hesitate to speak out loud, he wrote neatly. I can read lips perfectly and understand everything you say. I'll reply in writing or with gestures. The conversation started surprisingly easily. He asked about my work, my interests, my hobbies. He wrote quickly, his pen gliding smoothly across the paper in even lines. I told him about my love of literature, how much I enjoyed teaching, watching children discover the world of books. He listened, or rather, read my lips, and there was genuine interest in his eyes. I've always admired teachers, he wrote. It's a noble profession. You shape the next generation, help children find themselves. I blushed. Few people took my work that seriously. Most saw a literature teacher as someone just passing time until marriage. We kept seeing each other. Esteban took me to fine restaurants, theaters, art exhibitions. He was attentive and kind, always remembering the smallest details. If I mentioned liking white roses, he brought them next time. If I said I wanted to see a certain film, he'd already bought the tickets. My mother was ecstatic. See? I told you he's perfect, she repeated every time I came home. Wealthy, polite, treats you like a queen. What more do you need to be happy? And I didn't know what to answer. On one hand, Esteban truly was a pleasant man, smart, well-read, thoughtful. On the other hand, something inside me resisted. Maybe it was the lack of that spark, that magic I'd read about in novels. Maybe it was just fear of serious commitment after years of being alone. After 3 months of dating, Esteban proposed. It happened in the park where we often walked. He got down on one knee, opened a small box with a diamond ring, and wrote on a piece of paper, Valentina, you make me happy. Will you be my wife? I stared at him, at the ring that must have cost a fortune, speechless. My mind swirled. Did I love this man? Was I ready to marry him? To spend my life with him? But I saw the hope in his eyes, saw how much it meant to him, and remembered my mother's words, love will come with time. Respect and care are what matter. Maybe she was right. Maybe passionate love existed only in books. Maybe in real life, stability and reliability mattered more. Yes, I whispered. Esteban's face lit up with joy. He slipped the ring onto my finger, hugged me, and I felt his heartbeat, strong, steady, meant to reassure me. But all I felt was a strange emptiness inside. The next 3 months flew by in a whirlwind of wedding preparations. My mother took complete control, choosing the restaurant, guest list, dress, flowers, decorations. I felt like a bystander at my own wedding rather than the bride. Mama, maybe we should make it smaller? I tried to protest when she showed me the budget for a banquet of 120 guests. We don't need that many people. but she waved it off. Valentina, this happens once in a lifetime. You must remember this day. And besides, Esteban insists on a proper celebration. He wants everyone to see what a wonderful bride he has. Esteban never objected to any of her decisions. When I tried to discuss details with him, he only nodded and wrote, "I trust your taste." But I knew it wasn't my taste. It was hers. And it was starting to bother me more and more. A week before the wedding, I broke down. I sat in my room in yet another wedding dress my mother had made me try on and suddenly burst into tears. My whole body shook with sobs, mascara smeared across my cheeks. I didn't even understand why. I was supposed to be happy, to look forward to the wedding, to my new life. But all I felt was fear and confusion. My mother entered and froze when she saw me. "Valentina, what's wrong?" Her voice was full of genuine concern. "I don't know, Mama," I sobbed. "I don't know if I'm doing the right thing. I'm not sure I love Esteban. I'm not sure I even want to get married." She sat beside me and hugged me. "Sweetheart, it's just pre-wedding nerves. Every bride feels that way. Esteban is a wonderful man. He'll take care of you, give you stability and protection. And love comes with time, when you start building a life together." "But what if it doesn't?" I whispered. "What if I never love him?" My mother sighed and stroked my hair. "Valentina, I lived with your father for 23 years. You know what I regret the most? That we were so consumed by love we forgot about practical things, saving money, securing our future, thinking about health. When he got sick, we couldn't afford good treatment. If I'd chosen a wealthier husband, maybe things would have been different. Maybe your father would still be alive." Her words pierced me. I had never thought of it that way, never blamed her, or him, for what happened. It had just been a cruel twist of fate, a sudden illness no one could stop. "Mama, it's not your fault, or Dad's. It just happened." She shook her head. "Maybe, but I don't want you to make the same mistakes. Esteban will give you everything you need. You'll never have to worry about money, never fear the future. And that's more important than fleeting romantic feelings that fade with time." I didn't know what to say. Maybe she was right. Maybe I'd read too many love stories and expected too much from life. Maybe stability and care really did matter more than butterflies in your stomach or a racing heart when you see the one you love. The wedding day turned out sunny and warm. I got up early, unrest after a restless night. The whole house became an anthill. My mother fussed, giving last-minute instructions. The makeup artist and hairdresser worked their magic. My girlfriends chirped, discussing outfits. My best friend Ines helped me get dressed. She was one of the few who knew about my doubts, my fears. "Valentina, if you're not sure, it's not too late to call it off," she said quietly as she fastened the endless buttons on my dress. I shook my head. "No, it's fine. I'm just nervous, like every bride." She studied me closely. "Are you sure you want this? Because a wedding isn't just a pretty dress and a party, it's a decision for life." "I know," I said, looking at my reflection in the mirror. The girl in the snow-white dress, with a neat updo and flawless makeup, stared back in puzzlement. She was beautiful, but there was no joy in her eyes, only resignation. "But I've already decided. Esteban is a good man. We'll be happy." The ceremony at the registry office passed in a fog. I remember saying yes, Esteban sliding the ring onto my finger, our kiss to the applause of the guests. His lips were warm and soft, the kiss was tender and chaste. But I felt nothing except detachment, as if it were happening to someone else. The reception at the restaurant was luxurious. My mother spared no expense: white tablecloths, fresh flowers on every table, exquisite dishes, expensive champagne. 120 guests, most of whom I'd never seen before, Esteban's relatives, his business partners, my mother's acquaintances. Everyone smiled, offered congratulations, wished us happiness. Esteban sat beside me, held my hand, and from time to time leaned over to write something on a slip of paper, compliments, sweet words meant to delight me. Instead, all I felt was fatigue and a desire for it all to end as soon as possible. My mother looked happy and satisfied. She fluttered from table to table, receiving congratulations and telling everyone what a wonderful son-in-law she had. Her eyes shone with triumph, as if she'd just won an important battle. Your mother is so happy, Esteban wrote when he noticed me watching her. She truly cares about your happiness. I nodded, unable to answer out loud. Did my mother care about my happiness, or about her own peace of mind, knowing I was settled? I didn't know. The evening dragged on endlessly. Dancing, toasts, the usual wedding games. I smiled, thanked people for their wishes, and danced a slow dance with Esteban to a romantic song. His hands on my waist were confident but not forceful. He led me around the floor as if I were a fragile porcelain doll to be protected. Around 11, the banquet began to wind down. Guests gradually left, telling us to be happy and urging us to give my mother grandchildren soon. My mother kissed me and whispered in my ear, "You made the right choice, sweetheart. Be happy." Then she hugged Esteban, said something to him, and he nodded. We got into the car Esteban had hired for the wedding. The driver took us to my new apartment, or rather, our apartment, as my mother reminded me. Esteban had bought it a month earlier, a 3-room place in a new building in a good neighborhood. I had only seen it in photos. He said he wanted to surprise me, that he'd furnish everything himself so I could move into a ready home. The drive took about 20 minutes. We rode in silence. Esteban looked out the window, chewing his lip thoughtfully. I examined my hands in their white gloves, the ring on my finger that still felt foreign and uncomfortable. At last we arrived. The driver opened the door and wished us happiness. Esteban took my arm, and we went inside. A brand new elevator, without a single scratch, lifted us to the 8th floor. Esteban took out the keys, opened the door, and we went in. The apartment was spacious and bright, a large living room with floor-to-ceiling windows, a modern kitchen, 2 bedrooms. The furniture was new, expensive, tastefully chosen. Everything looked perfect, like a photo from an interiors magazine. I slipped off my shoes, and my feet gratefully touched the cool parquet. Esteban closed the door, and we were alone in the quiet apartment that was now supposed to be our home. And then he spoke, in that deep, slightly husky voice that made my heart stop and then race wildly. Now I sat in the bathroom, listening as he knocked again, asking me to come out and talk. But I couldn't. I couldn't make myself turn the key, open the door, and look into the eyes of a man who had pretended to be mute for 6 months and now wanted to explain why he'd done it. "Valentina, please," his voice pleaded. "I know you feel deceived, and you're right. But hear me out. Listen, and then decide what to do. I won't try to stop you if you want to leave, but give me a chance to explain." I looked at my reflection in the mirror, smeared mascara, reddened eyes, trembling lips. Not a happy bride, more like the victim of some elaborate prank. Taking a deep breath, I stood, washed my face with cold water, dried it with a towel, then slowly turned the key and opened the door. Esteban stood in the hallway, his back against the wall. He was still in his wedding suit. He'd only unbuttoned the top of his shirt and taken off his jacket. When he saw me, he straightened and took a step toward me. "Thank you for coming out," he said quietly. "Let's go to the living room and sit down. This is a long conversation." I walked past him without a word and sat on the edge of the new leather sofa. Esteban took the armchair opposite, not beside me, as if he understood I needed space between us. He was silent for a long time, searching for words. Then he drew a deep breath and began to speak. And what I heard over the next half hour overturned everything I thought had happened these past 6 months, everything about who Esteban really was, and what role my mother had played in it all. "I'm not mute," he began. "I never was. I was born and raised in an ordinary family, went to an ordinary school, got an education. Yes, I have my own business, appliance stores. That much is true. But everything else you know about me is a carefully constructed story." I stared at him, unable to believe my ears. He spoke calmly, without theatrics, as if describing the weather or a movie he'd seen. 2 years ago, I was married. My wife's name was Esperanza. We were together for 5 years. I loved her. I thought we were fine. But it turned out she'd been seeing another man, for a long time, more than a year. When I found out, she just packed and left. She said I was boring, predictable, that he was more interesting. He fell silent, and I saw real pain in his eyes, deep, raw, the pain of betrayal. The divorce was brutal. She demanded half the business, half the property. And she got it, because I was a fool who believed in love and never had a prenup. After the divorce, I swore I would never marry for love again, that next time I would be smarter, more calculating. And that's when you decided to pretend to be mute, burst out of me. My voice sounded strange, hoarse with tears. To see whether a woman would marry you not for your charm and sweet talk, but for your money. Esteban shook his head. Not exactly. The idea wasn't only mine. It was a joint plan. With your mother. I froze. What? My mother knew? She didn't just know. She was the instigator. Esteban stood and moved to the window, looking out at the night city. Carmen is my godmother. We've known each other since I was a child, though we hardly saw each other for many years. After my divorce, she heard about what happened and suggested we meet. She said she wanted to help. I listened in disbelief. My mother, his godmother? She had never mentioned it. Never said she'd known Esteban since childhood. She told me about you, Esteban went on, that you were a teacher, that you were intelligent, kind, home-loving, that you weren't spoiled, didn't chase money, that real values mattered to you. And she suggested we meet. But why pretend to be mute? I couldn't understand. If she spoke so well of me, why all the lies? Esteban turned to face me. Because I was afraid. Afraid of being fooled again, of trusting the wrong person. Carmen proposed the plan. She said that if you agreed to marry me even though I couldn't speak, it would prove you weren't superficial, that you cared about the person, not his ability to make grand speeches. So it was a test? An audition? I felt anger boiling up inside me. You and my mother decided to test me, like litmus paper, to see whether I was good enough for you. Valentina, it wasn't like that. Esteban took a step toward me. I didn't want to hurt you, but after what I'd been through, I couldn't trust a woman who fell for my words and promises. I wanted someone who would accept me as I was, without embellishment. But you created the embellishment. I jumped to my feet. You pretended to be someone else. How am I supposed to know who you really are if you lied from the very first meeting? Esteban said nothing. He had no answer. In that silence, something else, something frightening, hit me. Wait, I whispered. My mother, she pushed this marriage, insisted you were perfect, said love would come, that stability mattered most. She manipulated me, arranged my life without my consent. Esteban didn't answer, but the look in his eyes was confirmation. And then I felt something break inside me. Not anger, not resentment, something deeper and more painful. Betrayal. Betrayal by the person closest to me, the one I had trusted all my life. Leave, I said quietly. I don't care where, to another room, to friends, to a hotel. But I don't want to see you right now. I can't. He hesitated. Valentina, I truly am sorry. I know what I did was wrong. But give me a chance. Leave. My voice rose, and he flinched. Now. Immediately. He nodded and went to the door. On the threshold he turned. I'll be at my brother's. Here's his number, in case you decide to talk. He set a slip of paper on the table by the door. And, Valentina, forgive me. Truly. The door closed behind him, and I was alone in that perfect apartment he had furnished for our life together, a life built on lies. I sank onto the sofa, hugged my knees, and broke into sobs. I cried for everything, the illusions lost, the trust betrayed, the mother's love that turned out so warped and strange. I cried because I no longer knew who I was, someone's wife, or a fool who'd been placed like a wayward child. I don't know how long I sat there, an hour, maybe more. When the tears finally ran dry, I got up, went to the bathroom, washed my face, took off my wedding dress and dropped it on the floor, then changed into a simple nightgown I found in the bedroom closet. Esteban had apparently made sure there were clothes for me here. I lay down on the bed, pulled the blanket over me, and stared at the ceiling. My thoughts raced, refusing to let me rest. What now? Forgive? How do you forgive a lie like this? Leave? But where? To my mother, who was part of the plan. The phone on the nightstand suddenly rang, and I jumped. I picked it up, my mother's name on the screen. Of course she was calling. Probably to ask how the wedding night was going, whether everything was fine with her perfect plan. I stared at the screen for a long time, then hit decline. I couldn't talk to her now, didn't know what to say without screaming. The phone rang again. I declined it once more. Then a message arrived. Valentina, why aren't you answering? Is everything all right? Please call. I tossed the phone onto the bed and covered my face with my hands. No, Mama, nothing is all right. Your perfect plan collapsed because you forgot one small detail. I am not an object to be arranged and forgotten. I am a living person, with feelings, with a right to the truth, with a right to my own life. Sleep wouldn't come. I tossed and turned, trying to find a comfortable position, but my thoughts wouldn't quiet. I replayed every meeting with Esteban, every moment he'd signed something or written me a note. Was it all a game? Was every gesture, every smile a lie? And yet I also remembered his eyes, warm, attentive, where I had seen sincerity. I remembered his care, his attention to details. Was that pretense too? Or had he truly felt something for me? No, I whispered into the dark. How can he have feelings for someone he's been lying to since the very first meeting? By dawn I finally drifted into a fretful sleep. I dreamed of the wedding, but all the guests were faceless shadows, and Esteban stood at the altar with his mouth sewn shut with thick thread. I tried to scream, to say this wasn't right, but no sound came from my throat. I woke to the doorbell. Bright sunlight poured through the window, already well past noon. I got up, threw on a robe, and went to the door, still sleepy and disoriented. I looked through the peephole and saw my mother. She stood there with shopping bags, looking worried. I hesitated, unsure whether to open. But she rang again, insistently, and I realized she wouldn't leave until we talked. I opened the door. Mother came in, set the bags on the floor, and looked me over closely. Valentina, what happened? You look terrible. Why didn't you answer the phone? Where's Esteban? I walked to the kitchen in silence and put the kettle on. She followed, her face full of concern. Valentina, you're scaring me. Tell me what happened. I turned to her, and there must have been something in my eyes that made her step back. Esteban can speak, I said evenly. He was never mute. He's been pretending this whole time. And you knew from the beginning. My mother's face went pale, then flushed. She opened her mouth, closed it again, at a loss for words. Is that true? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Were you part of this deceit? Did you manipulate me, arrange my life without my consent? Mother sank onto a chair and ran a hand over her face. Valentina, I can explain everything. Explain, I said, sitting opposite her. Explain why my own mother decided she had the right to run my life. Why you didn't tell me the truth about Esteban. Why you took part in this performance. She was silent for a long time, staring out the window. Then she sighed and began. Esteban is my godson. I knew his parents before he was born. We were close friends. Then life took us different ways, and we barely kept in touch. When he divorced and I learned what he'd been through, how he'd been deceived, I felt for him. He's a good boy, always hardworking, honest, decent. And I thought. She trailed off, searching for words. You thought he'd be perfect for me, I finished, and decided to arrange our lives without asking what we wanted. Valentina, I wanted what was best, she said, pleading. You'd been alone so long. I saw how you suffered, how lonely you were. And I knew Esteban, I knew he was a good man, that he would take care of you, give you everything you needed to be happy. Did I want to hurt you? No, you didn't, I agreed. But you decided for me. You took part in a deception that was supposed to be the foundation of my marriage. What kind of relationship can be built on lies? Mother shook her head. It wasn't a lie. Not exactly. Esteban truly wanted a wife, truly wanted a family. And this experiment with muteness was for him, to make sure you weren't marrying him for pretty words or promises, but because you saw the person. Is that really so wrong? Yes. I slammed my fist on the table. Yes, Mother, it is. Because the basis of any relationship is trust and honesty. And you two began with a lie. How am I supposed to trust him now? To trust you? How do I know this isn't just another manipulation? Mother stood, came toward me, and tried to hug me. I pulled away. Don't. I don't want your hugs right now. I want the truth. All of it, what happened and what you planned. She sighed and sat back down. All right, I'll tell you everything. And she did, how Esteban had come to her after the divorce, broken, having lost faith in love and in women, how she'd suggested introducing him to me, told him I was good, reliable, home-loving. How Esteban agreed to meet but asked for time to make sure I wasn't like his ex-wife. The idea of pretending to be mute was his, my mother admitted. He said he wanted to see how a woman would react to a man who couldn't speak, whether she'd be patient and kind, or run at the first difficulty. And I agreed, because I wanted to be sure too, that he was right for you, that he wouldn't hurt you or leave. So it was a test for both of us, I said, incredulous. He tested me, and you tested him? Mother nodded. Yes. And when I saw how he treated you, how caring and attentive he was, I realized he truly is a good man, that you would be happy with him. But you forgot to ask what I thought, I said bitterly. You forgot I have a right to choose, a right to the truth. I thought it would be better this way, Mother said quietly, almost in a whisper. I thought that if you learned the truth after the wedding, when you were already together, you'd forgive it. You'd understand it was for your own good. I looked at her, my mother, whom I had loved all my life, and felt a strange mix of pity and anger. Pity, because I saw she genuinely believed she was doing the right thing. Anger, because she couldn't see me as an adult capable of making my own decisions. Mother, I don't know if I can forgive you, I said at last. Not now. Maybe with time. But right now I need to sort out my feelings, to understand what I want to do next. And for that, I need to be alone. She nodded, wiping away the tears that had begun to run down her cheeks. I understand. Forgive me, Valentina. I truly wanted what was best. She stood, took her bag, and turned at the door. If you decide to talk, I'm always here. I love you, my daughter. After she left, I was alone again. I sat on the sofa, hugged my knees, and tried to figure out what to do next. Divorce? File for an annulment, since the marriage had been entered into under false pretenses? That seemed the logical choice. But something inside me resisted. Perhaps because I remembered Esteban's eyes when he asked for forgiveness. Perhaps because I understood he, too, was a victim of his ex-wife's betrayal, of his own fear of being deceived again. But that doesn't excuse the lie, I said aloud, as if trying to convince myself. I spent the entire day in the apartment, no calls answered, no going out. I ate whatever I found in the fridge, stared out the window, tried to read but couldn't focus. By evening, the doorbell rang again. This time it was my friend Ines. I opened the door, and she hugged me at once. Valentina, your mother called. She said you're in trouble. What happened? I let her in and we sat on the sofa. I told her everything, that Esteban wasn't mute, that it had been a deception from the start, that my mother had been part of the plan. Ines listened, her eyes widening in disbelief. When I finished, she was silent for a long time, processing it all. My God, Valentina, this is madness, she breathed at last. So they lied to you from the beginning? And now what? He expects you to forgive everything and live happily ever after. I shrugged. I don't know what he expects. He went to his brother's yesterday when I asked him to. Ines took my hand. What do you want? Not your mother, not Esteban, you. What do you feel? I thought about it. What did I feel? Anger, yes. Hurt, of course. Disappointment, absolutely. But there was something else too, something I didn't want to admit even to myself. I don't know, I confessed. I'm angry with him, with my mother. And yet I remember our time together, how attentive he was, how caring. And I wonder, was that an act, or was there something real? Ines squeezed my hand. Valentina, only you can decide what comes next. But know this, whatever you choose, I'm with you. If you want a divorce, I'll help. If you want to give him a chance, I'll support that too. The most important thing is that it's your decision, not someone else's. Her words warmed me. At least there was one person who wouldn't try to manipulate me or decide for me. Thank you, Ines. Really, thank you. We spent the evening together, talking about everything and trying to distract ourselves from the situation. Ines made dinner from whatever she found in the fridge, and we ate as if it were any ordinary evening at a friend's place, not the first day after a wedding that had turned out to be a lie. After she left, I was alone again with my thoughts. I picked up the phone and looked at the slip of paper with Esteban's brother's number. I stared at the digits for a long time, deciding whether to call. Give him a chance to explain everything, Inez's voice echoed in my head. Hear him out completely, and then decide. I dialed. 1 ring, 2, 3. I was about to hang up when I heard a familiar voice. Valentina? Hope and fear mingled in Esteban's tone. Yes, it's me, I said, more calmly than I expected. I need you to come over. We need to talk, really talk, with nothing left unsaid. I'll come right now, he answered quickly. I'll be there in 20 minutes. I hung up and went to wash my face and make myself presentable. I looked at my reflection, pale face, dark circles under my eyes, but a resolute gaze. I was ready to hear the whole truth and then decide whether this marriage, born in deception, had any future. Esteban arrived in 17 minutes. I let him in, and we sat again in the living room, he in the armchair, I on the sofa. There was still distance between us, but no longer the chasm of yesterday. Talk, I said. Everything, from the beginning. No embellishments. He nodded and began, about his marriage to Esperanza, how he had loved her and made plans for the future, how he had discovered the affair by chance, seeing a message on her phone. How she hadn't even tried to deny it. She simply said she didn't love him and had long wanted to leave, just waiting for the right moment. The divorce was ugly, he said, pain clear in his voice. She hired a top lawyer. They took half the business, the apartment, the car. I didn't want to fight. I just wanted it over. In the end, I was left with almost nothing. I had to start over, take loans, rebuild the business. He fell silent, staring at the floor. And when I finally got back on my feet, when I started thinking about having a family again, I realized I was afraid. Afraid of being deceived again, of trusting the wrong person. So I went to Carmen, my godmother, complained about life, told her my fears. She suggested introducing us. She told me about you, how intelligent, kind, and honest you were, that you didn't chase money, that real values mattered to you. And I was interested, but the fear was still strong. So I proposed the plan, to pretend to be mute and see how you'd react. Carmen was against it at first, then agreed. She said she understood my concerns. He lifted his eyes to me. And you know what's strangest? I didn't expect to like you. I thought it would be a transaction, a marriage of convenience where we both got what we needed. I'd have a calm wife who wouldn't betray me. You'd have stability and security. But once we started seeing each other, once I got to know you, I realized you're special. I said nothing, unsure how to respond. You were patient with me, he went on. You taught me sign language, even though I already knew it. You spoke with me for hours, ignoring the fact that I couldn't answer aloud. You saw a person, not a disability, and that moved me more than I imagined. He stood and came closer, but didn't sit beside me, respecting my space. Valentina, I know I started the wrong way, that I deceived you. It's unforgivable, but everything between us, my attention, my care, my interest, was real. I truly wanted to know you, to make you happy. The only difference was that I could speak and chose silence. I looked at him, trying to decide if he was telling the truth or wrapping another lie in the language of sincerity. How can I trust you? I asked softly. You lied to me for 6 months, every day, every meeting. How can I know this isn't just another lie? Esteban sank to his knees in front of me and took my hands in his. I don't know how to prove my sincerity. I don't know how to earn back your trust, but I'm willing to spend as long as it takes. I'm willing to start over, honestly, with no games or pretense. Give me a chance, Valentina. One chance to show you I can be real. I looked at this man I'd married yesterday, not knowing who he truly was, and realized that the decision I made now would shape the rest of my life. Forgive? Give him a chance? Or leave, end a marriage that began with a lie and try to start over? I don't know, I admitted. I don't know what to do. I need time to sort out my feelings, to understand what I truly want. Esteban nodded. I understand. Take as much time as you need. I'll wait. He stood and headed for the door. On the threshold he turned back. Valentina, know this, I never wanted to hurt you. Never. And if you decide you can't forgive me, I'll accept it. I won't try to hold you or pressure you. But if you decide to give me a chance, I promise I'll do everything so you won't regret it. After he left, I was alone again. This time I didn't cry. I just sat and thought, trying to understand what I felt. Anger? Yes, it was still there. Hurt? Without question. But there was something else too, a realization that Esteban had been wounded by life as well, that his fears were real, that he'd simply looked for a way to protect himself. But that doesn't excuse the lie, I repeated again, like a mantra. I spent the next few days in contemplation. I didn't leave the apartment and didn't answer my mother's calls, though she rang every day trying to talk. Inez came every evening, brought food, and supported me. Esteban didn't call or write. He gave me space, just as he'd promised. But each evening, flowers appeared at my door, white roses, my favorite, without a note, without words. Just flowers, a reminder that he remembered, that he was waiting. On the 5th day I decided to leave the house, to walk, breathe fresh air, and try to look at the situation from the outside. I put on simple jeans and a sweater and went out. I walked for a long time with no destination, just wandering the streets and watching people, young couples holding hands, families with children, elderly spouses sitting on a bench in the park. They all looked happy, content, and I wondered, do they really know everything about each other, or does everyone have their own secrets, omissions, small lies? But there's a chasm between omission and pretense, I reminded myself. I went into a cafe, ordered coffee, and sat by the window watching passers-by. And suddenly I saw Esteban. He was walking on the opposite side of the street, talking on the phone, looking tired and tense. I froze, watching him. He didn't see me, just kept going, absorbed in his conversation. And in that moment something clicked in my head. I realized that despite all the deceit, despite all the lies, Esteban was a real person with real feelings and fears. Not a fairy tale villain, not a cunning manipulator. Just a man who had been hurt and was trying to protect himself. That doesn't excuse him, I told myself. But maybe it explains him. I finished my coffee, paid, and went outside. Esteban had already disappeared from view, but I knew what I needed to do next. I needed to talk to him again, truly talk, without anger or accusations, and try to understand him the way he had, apparently, tried to understand me these past months. That evening I called him. He answered on the first ring. Valentina? Come over, I said. We need to talk. He arrived half an hour later. We sat in the living room again, but this time I let him sit beside me on the sofa. I've been thinking, I began, thinking a lot, about this situation, about you, about me, about us. And I've realized I can't just forgive and forget. Trust doesn't come back in a day. He nodded, his face serious. But I've also realized I don't want to give up. I don't want to destroy what could be because of a bad beginning. So I'm proposing we start over, truly start over, with a clean slate. Esteban looked at me hopefully. What do you mean? Let's pretend we've just met. That there's nothing between us yet. No deceit, no lies, no wedding. Just two people who want to get to know each other, truly, with no games and no pretending. I paused to gather my thoughts, but it will be on my terms. No secrets, no omissions. Total honesty about everything, your past, your fears, your hopes. And I'll be honest with you, I'll tell you about my doubts, my feelings, what I really think. I agree, Esteban said quickly. To any terms. Thank you, Valentina, thank you for this chance. Don't thank me yet, I stopped him. I'm not promising I can forgive. I'm not promising it will work out between us. This is just a try to see if we have a future. He nodded. I understand, and I'll do everything I can to prove I deserve your trust. We spent the entire evening talking, really talking, perhaps for the first time since we met. Esteban told me about his childhood, his parents, how he started his business, his interests, dreams, and fears. And I opened up too, about myself, my relationship with my mother, my work, what I want from life. It was strange to hear his voice, silent for so long, deep, pleasant, slightly husky. He spoke slowly, weighing every word, as if afraid to say the wrong thing again. When it got dark, Esteban stood to go. See you tomorrow? He asked hopefully. I nodded. See you. Come for dinner. He smiled, and I saw genuine joy in his eyes. With pleasure. After he left, I went to bed feeling a strange calm. Not happiness, no. but not the emptiness and pain from before either. Something in between. Hope, perhaps, hope that we could build something real on the ruins of a lie. The next weeks were not easy. Esteban and I met every day, talked, and got to know each other anew. He took me to restaurants, theaters, exhibitions like before, but now it was different. Now he spoke, shared his thoughts and emotions, and I saw the real him, without the mask of muteness. I learned that he loved reading classic literature, especially Borges, that as a child he dreamed of becoming an architect but life turned out differently, that he's afraid of heights but tells no one, that his favorite season is autumn because it reminds him of childhood, when he and his parents harvested fruit in the garden. And he got to know me, the real me, not the woman I tried to be to meet my mother's expectations. He learned that I love to dance, even though I'm terrible at it, that I dream of writing a novel but fear I won't manage it, that I can't stand lies of any kind, even small, polite ones. I know, he said when I confessed this. That's why I'm so afraid of deceiving you again, even by accident. Gradually, my anger subsided, replaced by understanding. I still hadn't fully forgiven him, but I was beginning to see the situation from another angle, to understand that he, too, was a victim of betrayal that shattered his faith in people. Talking with my mother was harder. I met her 2 weeks after our first confrontation. We sat in a cafe, drinking tea, and I saw how nervous she was, twisting a napkin in her hands. Valentina, forgive me, she began. I truly didn't mean to hurt you. I just wanted you to be happy, to have everything you needed. Mama, you decided for me, I said calmly. You didn't ask what I wanted. You just made a plan and expected me to follow it like a dutiful doll. She lowered her eyes. I know, and I regret it, but understand, after your father died, I was so afraid for you, afraid you'd repeat my mistakes, marry for love a man who couldn't provide. And when there was a chance to arrange things with Esteban, I couldn't let it pass. But Mama, Papa wasn't a mistake, I said gently. You loved each other. You were happy. Isn't that more important than money and security? She shook her head. You don't understand, Valentina. When your father got sick, when I couldn't afford the best treatment, when I watched him fade day by day, I realized love isn't enough. You also need stability, the ability to give your loved one everything they need. I took her hand. Mama, Papa didn't die because we lacked money. He died because life turned out that way. Blaming yourself is wrong. You did everything you could. Tears streamed down her cheeks. But I could have done more. If we'd had money, if I'd chosen a wealthier husband, maybe things would have been different. Or maybe not, I said. Maybe nothing would have changed. But you'd have lived with someone you didn't love, and that would have made you miserable. We sat for a long time, holding hands and crying. It was catharsis for both of us, a release from old grievances and unspoken feelings. I forgive you, Mama, I said at last. But please, trust me from now on. Trust my choices, my decisions. I'm a grown woman, and I have the right to my own life. She nodded, wiping her tears. I promise. I won't interfere again. A month passed since that night Esteban spoke. We still lived apart, he at his brother's, I in our apartment, but we met every day, rebuilding step by step. One evening, as we walked in the park, Esteban suddenly stopped and took my hands. Valentina, I want to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. I nodded, feeling my heart quicken. Do we have a chance? Can you ever fully forgive me and give our marriage a real chance? I was silent for a long time, thinking, had I fully forgiven him? No. The scar of the deception still ached, still reminded me. But I felt we were moving in the right direction, gradually building something real. I don't know, I answered honestly. I don't know if I can forgive completely, but I do know I want to try, to give us a chance to become a real family, built on honesty and trust. Esteban smiled, and in his eyes I saw relief and gratitude. Then let's try. Together. No secrets, no lies. Just the two of us, building our life. I nodded. Together. We embraced under the autumn trees. And in that moment I felt that maybe we really did have a chance to build a happy family despite a wrong beginning. But many trials, many conversations, much work on rebuilding trust still lay ahead. And the first of those didn't keep us waiting. A week after our talk in the park, Esteban moved back into the apartment. We agreed to live like roommates for now, each in our own room, without obligations or pressure. Just two people under one roof who want to get to know each other better. The first days were strange. I was used to being alone, to the quiet and freedom. Now I had to share space with a man who was still a mystery to me. We'd bump into each other in the kitchen in the mornings, make breakfast, exchange awkward glances, try to start conversations. Esteban tried his best. He made my coffee just the way I like it, left good morning notes on the fridge, offered help with chores. I saw his efforts and appreciated them, but inside I was still on guard. Trust doesn't return quickly, no matter how hard someone tries. One evening I was making dinner while Esteban worked in the living room on his laptop. Suddenly, the doorbell rang. I wiped my hands on a towel and went to open it, not expecting visitors. On the threshold stood an unfamiliar woman, beautiful, well-groomed, in an expensive coat and high heels. Her long dark hair was perfectly styled, her makeup was flawless. She gave me a cool once-over, and I suddenly felt awkward in my home jeans and simple t-shirt. "Who are you?" I asked, an uneasy feeling creeping over me. The woman smiled, but the smile didn't reach her eyes. "I'm Esperanza, Esteban's ex-wife. And you, I presume, are the new Senora Moreno?" My heart lurched. Esperanza, the very woman who had betrayed Esteban, the one who had shattered his faith in love and set the whole mute charade in motion. "What do you want?" I asked coldly, not inviting her in. Esperanza looked past me into the apartment. "I need to speak with Esteban. It's important." "I'm here," came Esteban's voice behind me. He approached and laid a hand on my shoulder. The gesture was both protective and calming. "What are you doing here, Esperanza?" She gave that same cold smile. "Isn't it obvious? I came to talk about our past, about what we had and about what might still be." I felt Esteban tense beside me, his hand on my shoulder tightened. "There is no future for us, Esperanza. There isn't even a present. There's only a past, and it ended long ago." Esperanza shook her head. "Do you really think so, Esteban? We were married for 5 years. I gave you 5 years of my life. Do you think you can just erase me and start over?" With her, she nodded toward me, her gaze dripping with contempt, and anger began to boil inside me. "She's my wife," Esteban said, his voice hard, "and I'm asking you to respect her. As for us, everything ended 2 years ago. You made that choice yourself when you cheated on me and left for another man." She sighed, and I noticed her eyes fill with tears for a moment, but she quickly pulled herself together. "I was wrong, Esteban. I realized it too late, but I did realize it. That man he dumped me after 6 months, said I was just a diversion. And you were real. You truly loved me. I was too foolish to value it." I looked at her and, despite all the anger I felt, I couldn't help but see the pain in her eyes, real, deep, repentant pain. "Esperanza, even if that's true, it's still too late," Esteban said, his voice not angry, only tired. "I've moved on. I have a new life, a new relationship, and I don't want to go back to the past." Esperanza looked at me, then back at Esteban. "Do you really love her, or is this just an attempt to forget me?" Esteban hesitated, and the silence dragged on too long. I felt something tighten inside me. Why wasn't he answering right away? Why the hesitation? "I'm building a relationship with her," he said at last. "An honest, open relationship. And I'm asking you to respect that and leave us alone." Esperanza nodded, and a single tear rolled down her cheek. "All right, I'll go. But know this, Esteban, if you ever change your mind, if you want to give us a second chance, I'll be waiting." She turned and walked to the elevator without looking back. Esteban closed the door and leaned against it, eyes shut. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I didn't know she'd come. I didn't know she wanted to come back." I stood with my arms crossed, feeling a strange mix of anger, jealousy, and doubt. "You hesitated," I said. "When she asked if you loved me, you hesitated." Esteban opened his eyes and looked at me. "Valentina, I hesitated not because I'm thinking about Esperanza. I hesitated because I don't know if I have the right to speak of love after what I did, after deceiving you for 6 months." He stepped closer and took my hands. But if you're asking whether I have feelings for you, the answer is yes. I do. Strong, deep feelings that have grown with each of our meetings. And no, I don't want to go back to Esperanza, or to a past that was only pain and betrayal. I looked into his eyes, trying to discern whether he was telling the truth, and saw sincerity there, so unmistakable I couldn't help but believe it. All right, I said quietly. But if she shows up again, if she tries to win you back, I want to know about it. Immediately. No secrets. Esteban nodded. I promise. No secrets. We returned to our routine, but Esperanza's visit left a mark. I caught myself thinking about her, about the 5 years they'd shared, the history and bond they had, something we didn't. And that bred doubts. Was I enough? Could Esteban truly forget her and build something with me? When I told Ines about Esperanza's visit, she was blunt. Valentina, don't let that witch wreck what you and Esteban are building. She showed up because she heard he got married. She's just jealous he moved on and she didn't. But she was his first love, I protested. 5 years of marriage is a lot. How can I compete with that? Ines gripped my shoulders and made me look her in the eye. You don't have to compete. You just have to be yourself. If Esteban chose you, he sees something in you Esperanza didn't have. Trust him, and trust yourself. I tried to follow her advice, but it wasn't easy. Every time Esteban worked late, every time he fell silent and got lost in thought, I wondered, is he thinking of her? Does he regret marrying me? Things came to a head 2 weeks later when I happened to see a message on Esteban's phone. He'd left it on the kitchen table and gone to shower. The screen lit up with an incoming text, and I glanced at it instinctively. I can't stop thinking about you. Please meet me, just once. Esperanza. My heart stopped. They were texting? Despite all the promises, despite everything he'd said about wanting only me, they were texting. When Esteban came out of the shower, I was sitting on the sofa with his phone in my hands. He saw my face and immediately understood. Valentina, I can explain. Explain, I said coldly, handing him the phone. Explain why your ex-wife is writing that she can't stop thinking about you. Explain why you're messaging at all when you promised it was over. Esteban took the phone and looked at the message. This is the first one in 2 weeks. I haven't answered her, haven't asked to meet. She writes to me, and I ignore it. He showed me the message thread. Sure enough, there were only messages from Esperanza, dozens of pleas to meet, claims that she missed him and wanted back. There wasn't a single reply from Esteban. Why didn't you block her number? I asked, my anger slowly giving way to confusion. Esteban sat down beside me. Because I was afraid it would look like running away, like I still felt something and had to avoid her. I wanted to show it didn't matter, that her words didn't affect me. But they affect me, I said softly. Every message, every attempt to get you back affects me, because I'm not sure, Esteban. I'm not sure about us, about what we're building. And when she appears, all my doubts return. Esteban took the phone, opened his contacts, found Esperanza's number, and, without a word, blocked it. Look, he said, showing me the screen. I'm blocking her. For good. She won't be able to reach me, and if she tries some other way, I'll tell her flat out that I don't want any contact. I looked at him, emotions warring inside me, gratitude for the gesture, guilt for making him do it, relief that he chose me. Thank you, I whispered. That really matters to me. Esteban pulled me into his arms and held me close. I know, and I want you to feel safe, to know I chose you. Not out of calculation, not because of some game. Simply because I want to be with you. We sat there holding each other, and I felt something warm begin to grow inside, something like trust. Not complete, not absolute, but a beginning of a real relationship built not on lies but on honesty and mutual respect. But life, it turned out, wasn't going to give us a break. A week later I came home from work and found an envelope with no return address in the mailbox. I opened it and froze. Inside were photos, pictures of Esteban and Esperanza from their past life together. In some they were happy, smiling, embracing. In others, it was their wedding day, so in love, so content. And a note, written in a woman's hand, he was happy with me. Truly happy. Can you give him the same? I stood in the hallway with the photos in my hands, feeling everything inside me tighten with pain. They really did look happy, truly in love. And me, what was I to him? A way to forget? An experiment gone wrong? When Esteban came home, I silently handed him the envelope. He looked at the photos, and his expression darkened. "It's Esperanza," he said. "She won't stop. She's trying to destroy what we have." "And what do we have, Esteban?" I asked wearily. "What are we building?" Because, honestly, I don't know. We live under the same roof but in separate rooms. We're married, but our marriage began with a lie. We talk about feelings, but I'm not sure they're real. Esteban set the photos on the table and came to me. "Valentina, I understand your doubts. I understand how hard it is to believe in the sincerity of someone who started with deception. But I really am trying. I truly want to build something real with you." "Then prove it," I said, surprised at the firmness of my own voice. "Prove it not with words but with actions. I've heard enough words, from you, from my mother, from everyone who supposedly had my best interests at heart. I need actions." "What do you want me to do?" Esteban asked. "Tell me, and I'll do it." I thought, what did I really want? For him to prove his love? But how do you prove a feeling? For him to sever all ties with the past? He had already blocked Esperanza. What did I want? "I want to meet your family," I said at last. "Your parents, your brother. I want to see how they treat you, us, this marriage. I want to understand who you really are, not through your words, but through the people who've known you all your life." Esteban nodded. "All right, I'll call my parents and arrange it. They've wanted to meet you for a long time, but I kept putting it off. I thought we needed to sort ourselves out first." The meeting was set for the following weekend. We drove to Esteban's parents' country house. On the way I was nervous, twisting my bag in my hands, rehearsing what I'd say. "Don't worry," Esteban soothed, resting a hand on my knee. "They're kind people. They'll like you." His parents' home was large and cozy, with a garden and a terrace. We were greeted by Esteban's mother, Dolores, a smiling woman in her 60s with kind eyes and warm hugs. "At last we meet," she exclaimed, embracing me. "Esteban has told us so much about you. Come in, don't linger in the doorway." Esteban's father, Osvaldo, was more reserved but still welcoming. He shook my hand and looked me in the eye, as if assessing me. Over lunch, Dolores asked about my work, my family, my interests. I answered honestly, talking about school, my students, my love of literature. "Teaching is a noble profession," Osvaldo remarked. "My mother taught math her whole life. I saw how much strength and soul she poured into her students." After lunch, Esteban went to the workshop with his father to discuss something about the business, and I stayed in the kitchen with Dolores. As we washed dishes, she suddenly asked, "Valentina, may I ask you a personal question?" I tensed. "Of course. Are you happy with my son? Truly happy?" I froze, unsure how to answer. Was I happy? Or was I just trying to build something from the ruins of deception? I don't know, I admitted honestly. It's all so complicated. Our marriage didn't start the way it should have, and I'm still trying to understand what I feel, whether I can trust. Dolores nodded, drying a plate. "Carmen told me about your situation, about the plan she and Esteban came up with. I was against it from the start, you know. I told my son you can't build a relationship on deception. But he was so wounded after the divorce from Esperanza, so afraid of being fooled again, that he wouldn't listen." She turned to me and laid a hand on my shoulder. "But I saw how he changed after meeting you. Even when he was still pretending to be mute, I saw something new in his eyes, lightness, joy, hope. The Esteban I hadn't seen in years. I realized you are special to him. Not just a wife of convenience, but someone who truly matters." Her words warmed me and gave me hope. "Really? Really, dear. My son isn't perfect. He made a big mistake by starting your relationship with a lie. But he's trying to make it right, to be better for you. Isn't that worthy of a second chance?" I thought about it. Maybe she was right. Maybe everyone makes mistakes, and what matters isn't how you start, but how you try to set things right. When we left, Dolores hugged me goodbye and whispered in my ear, "Give him a chance, Valentina. Give you both a chance to be happy." On the drive home, I was pensive. Esteban noticed. What are you thinking about? Us, I said. What your mother said. That maybe we really do deserve a chance. Esteban took my hand and kissed my fingers. We do, Valentina. I believe that. At home, a surprise was waiting. Esperanza sat by the door. She looked tired and disheveled, nothing like the polished woman I'd seen the first time. Esteban, please, hear me out, she began, standing up. I know you blocked me, but I really need to talk. We have nothing to talk about, Esperanza, Esteban said sharply. How many times do I have to repeat myself? It's over. I'm pregnant, Esperanza blurted. And we both froze. The world seemed to stop. I stared at Esperanza, trying to decide whether I'd heard correctly. Pregnant? By whom? Esteban's? It cannot be my child, Esteban said slowly. We haven't been together for 2 years. Esperanza shook her head, tears spilling down her cheeks. No, it's not yours. I met another man after we split up, after the one I left for. We were together a few months, and when he found out I was pregnant, he vanished. Just disappeared without even saying goodbye. She sank to the floor by the door and hugged her knees. And I realized what a mistake I'd made. What a huge, unforgivable mistake. I had you, Esteban, a man who loved me, who cared for me. And I chose thrills and adventures. And what did I get? I'm alone, pregnant by a man who didn't even bother to say goodbye, and you're no longer in my life. She lifted her eyes to us, full of despair. I'm not asking you to come back. I know that's impossible. I just don't know what to do. I don't know how to go on living with this burden of guilt and loneliness. I looked at her and, despite all the jealousy and anger I'd felt before, I couldn't help but feel compassion. She was a person who had made a mistake and was now paying for it, as we all do. Esteban was silent for a moment, then said, Esperanza, I can't come back to you, and I can't give you what you want. But I can help financially, help with the pregnancy, with the baby when it's born. Esperanza shook her head. I don't need your money. I'll manage on my own. I just wanted you to know how much I regret what I did. She stood, wiped away her tears. I'm sorry for bothering you. I won't come again. I won't write. I wish you happiness, Esteban. Real happiness, the kind I couldn't give you. She left, and we stood in the hallway, processing what had just happened. Do you really want to help her? I asked. Esteban looked at me. I don't want to go back to her, if that's what you mean. But she was part of my life for 5 years. I can't just ignore her when she's in trouble. That would be wrong. I thought about it. He was right. Despite everything, Esperanza was someone in need, and to ignore that would mean losing part of our humanity. All right, I said. Help her, but keep me informed. I want to know how you're helping her, when you meet with her, if you do at all. Total transparency, remember? Esteban hugged me. Thank you for understanding. Total transparency, I promise. In the weeks that followed, life settled. Esperanza never appeared again. She only sent Esteban the occasional short message thanking him for financial help. He showed me every message, every transfer. No secrets. Esteban and I grew closer, slowly, step by step. We cooked dinner together, watched movies, walked in the park. Ordinary things that ordinary couples do. And it felt good, peaceful, right. One evening, as we sat on the sofa after dinner, Esteban suddenly said, Valentina, there's something important I want to tell you. I tensed. Every time he started like that, I expected another revelation, another secret from the past. I love you, he said simply. I know I've said it before, but now I want to say it differently, without qualifiers, without doubt. I love you, Valentina. I love your kindness, your strength, your ability to forgive. I love the way you smile when you read. I love how tenderly you talk about your students. I love everything about you. I looked at him, feeling my eyes fill with tears. No one had ever said such words to me, so sincerely, so openly. I'm not asking you to say it back right now, he went on. I understand you need time, that trust returns slowly. I just want you to know what I feel, no games, no pretense. Just the truth. I reached out and touched his cheek. Thank you for being honest. For not pushing, not rushing. He covered my hand with his. We have time, Valentina. a whole life ahead of us. But life, as it turned out, had another test in store. A month later, I started feeling unwell, morning nausea, dizziness, weakness. At first I blamed stress, overwork. But when the symptoms didn't go away for a week, I went to the doctor. The test showed 2 lines. I was pregnant. I sat in the gynecologist's office holding the test results, unable to believe it. Pregnant. By Esteban, the man with whom we weren't even living as husband and wife yet, because I wasn't ready for that intimacy. But how? I whispered. The doctor smiled. You're married, as I see from your paperwork. You didn't use protection? I blushed. We hadn't used protection that one night before the wedding, when Esteban hadn't yet admitted he could speak. The night I tried to forget, to erase from memory, because it had been built on a lie. I didn't think it could happen from one time. It happens, the doctor said with a shrug. Congratulations, you're going to be a mother. I walked out of the clinic in complete shock. Pregnant. I was going to have a child with Esteban, a man I still wasn't sure about in terms of our relationship. What should I do? Tell him? Of course I should. But how would he react? Be happy, or scared it was too soon, that we hadn't figured ourselves out yet? I moved through the day in a fog, rehearsing how I'd tell him. When Esteban came home from work, I was sitting in the kitchen, nervously twisting a napkin. Valentina, what's wrong? He noticed at once. You look pale. I need to tell you something, I began, my voice trembling. Something important that will change everything. Esteban sat across from me and took my hands. Tell me. Whatever it is, we'll handle it. I'm pregnant, I blurted, and fell silent, waiting for his reaction. Esteban froze. His eyes widened, his face went pale, then flushed. He opened his mouth, closed it again, words failing him. You're pregnant? With my child? I nodded. From that night, before the wedding, I didn't expect it. I didn't think it could happen from just once. Suddenly Esteban stood, came to me, and hugged me so tightly I could hardly breathe. This is the best news of my life. The best, Valentina. We're going to have a baby. Our baby. I felt tears running down his cheeks, tears of joy, happiness, hope. Aren't you scared? I asked. Don't you think it's too soon? Esteban drew back and looked me in the eyes. I'm scared. Of course I am. I'm afraid I'll be a bad father, that I won't cope. But more than that, I'm happy, because this child binds us, gives us another chance to become a real family. His words warmed me. Maybe this truly was a chance to build something real and strong, not on deceit but on love for our future child. But I don't want you to stay with me just because of the baby, Esteban added. If you still doubt us, if you don't feel you can trust me, say so. I'll be in the child's life and help you, but I won't keep you in a relationship where you're unhappy. I looked at him, this man who had started with a lie but was now completely honest, and suddenly realized that despite all the fear and doubt, I wanted to try. I wanted to give us a chance to be a family. I'm staying, I said. Not just because of the baby, but because I think I'm starting to love you. Truly love you. Esteban hugged me again, and we stood there for a long time, holding each other, feeling something new grow between us, not just passion or infatuation, but something deeper, stronger. Love built on honesty, trust, and mutual respect. The following months were difficult but happy. The pregnancy went smoothly, and I gradually got used to the idea that I would soon be a mother. Esteban was with me every second. He came to every appointment, read books about pregnancy and childbirth, prepared the nursery. When my mother found out, she was overjoyed. See, darling? I told you Esteban was perfect. Now you'll have a proper family. I didn't argue, though I wanted to say that a family is built on love, not calculation. But my mother was happy, and I didn't want to spoil it. We never crossed paths with Esperanza again. Esteban continued helping her financially until the birth, and then she refused further help, saying she'd found a job and could support herself and the baby. Do you think she'll manage? I asked Esteban one day. I think so, he said. Esperanza is a strong woman when she wants to be. Maybe motherhood will change her, make her more responsible. In the 7th month, Esteban and I finally decided to live as true husband and wife, not in separate rooms, but together, in one bed. It felt strange and thrilling, but also right, as if everything had finally fallen into place. Valentina, Esteban said one night as we lay in each other's arms, "Thank you." "For what?" I asked, surprised. "For giving me a chance. For not giving up when it would have been easier to leave. For believing in us." I turned to him and looked into his eyes. "I want to say thank you, too. For changing. For learning to be honest. For loving me, despite all my fears and doubts." He kissed me, gently, carefully, as if I were the most precious thing he had. And in that moment I realized that yes, I loved him. Truly, deeply. The labor started 2 weeks early. I woke in the night with a sharp pain low in my belly. Esteban woke instantly, leapt out of bed. "Is it starting? Contractions?" I nodded, clenching my teeth against the pain. "I think so." He was wonderful though calm, collected, knowing exactly what to do. He helped me dress, grabbed the bag we'd packed, called a taxi. On the way to the hospital he held my hand, soothed me, told me everything would be all right. The birth was long and hard, 14 hours of pain, exhaustion, fear. But Esteban stayed with me every minute, never leaving my side, wiping sweat from my forehead, whispering words of support. And finally, when I thought I couldn't go on, a cry sounded, the cry of our daughter, who had just come into the world. "A girl," the midwife announced, placing a tiny bundle on my chest. "Congratulations, a healthy, beautiful girl." I looked at this little person, her wrinkled red face, the tiny fingers already gripping my hand, and felt an overwhelming, all-consuming love spread through me. "Our daughter," I whispered, unable to look away. Esteban stood beside me, tears streaming down his cheeks. "Our little girl, the most beautiful in the world. We named her Sophia, wisdom, and she truly became our wise little one, the center of our universe from the first second. The first months of motherhood were hard, sleepless nights, constant fatigue, the fear I was doing everything wrong. But Esteban was there, helping with every little thing, getting up at night so I could sleep, changing diapers, rocking Sophia when she cried. I saw how he looked at his daughter, with such tenderness and adoration that my heart tightened with happiness. He was a wonderful father, attentive, caring, always ready to help. "You're an amazing mother," he told me one day as we watched Sophia sleeping in her crib. "And you're an amazing father," I replied, taking his hand. He looked at me, his eyes full of so much love and gratitude that I felt tears prick my own. "Valentina, I want to say again, forgive me for how we started, for the deceit, the lies, the games. If I could go back, I'd do it all differently. I'd start honestly, openly." I shook my head. "Don't. What's done is done. We can't change the past, but we can build the future. And I think we're doing a pretty good job." Esteban hugged me, pulling me close. "I love you, Valentina. More than life." "I love you too, Esteban. In spite of everything." We sat, holding each other, listening to our daughter's soft breathing, and I knew that yes, we were happy. Despite the rough beginning, despite all the trials, we had found each other, found true love, a real family. A year passed. Sophia grew, delighting us every day with her smiles, her first words, her first steps. Esteban and I became closer, stronger. The trust that had been broken at the start gradually rebuilt. Not completely, scars remained forever, but enough for us to feel safe with each other. One day Esteban came home from work wearing a mysterious smile. "I have a surprise for you," he said, pulling an envelope from his pocket. I opened it and found 2 tickets to Paris, for 2 weeks. "But how?" I gasped. "What about Sophia?" "My parents have agreed to watch her," he said. "They've been wanting more time with their granddaughter. And we need a vacation, time just for the 2 of us." I stared at the tickets, torn. On the one hand, I dreamt of a trip like this. On the other, I was afraid to leave Sophia, afraid something might happen when I wasn't there. "Don't worry," Esteban said, as if reading my thoughts. "She'll be fine. My mother will manage perfectly. And we need time alone, to remember we're not only parents, but husband and wife." He was right. We'd earned this vacation, these 2 weeks just for us. Paris was magical. We wandered down narrow streets, sipped coffee in little cafes, went up the Eiffel Tower, admired the Louvre. Esteban was attentive, romantic, the way I had always dreamed a husband would be. One evening, as we sat on the bank of the Seine watching the sun go down, Esteban suddenly dropped to one knee. "What are you doing?" I asked in surprise. He took out a small box and opened it. Inside was a ring, not as showy as the one from his first proposal, but simple, elegant, with a small, heart-shaped stone. "Valentina, I know we're already married. I know we have a daughter, a family, but I want to do this the right way. I want to ask again, for real, without games or lies. Will you marry me? Will you be my wife not by someone else's plan, but by your own choice?" I looked at him, at this man who had come such a long way, from deceiver to honest, loving husband and father, and felt my heart spill over with love. "Yes," I whispered through tears. 1,000 times, yes. He slid the ring onto my finger, embraced me, kissed me, and in that moment I felt that everything we'd gone through, all the trials, all the doubts, had been worth it, because it brought us here, to this moment of true love and happiness. When we came home, Sophia greeted us with delighted squeals, reaching out her little arms. We hugged and kissed her, telling her how much we'd missed her, and I realized this was happiness, not perfect, not a fairy tale, but real, hard-won, deserved. Another 2 years passed. Sophia started kindergarten. Esteban and I lived a calm, measured life, work, family, friends. The ordinary life of an ordinary couple who love each other. My mother sometimes came over, helped with Sophia, told us about her own affairs. Our relationship mended, though I still remembered her part in the deception. But I forgave her. I understood she truly meant well, she just chose the wrong way to do it. Ines became Sophia's godmother and our close family friend. She often visited, played with our daughter, and chatted with me about life. "You know, Valentina, I'm proud of you," she said once. "You managed to turn a lie into truth, deceit into real love. That's no small thing." Esperanza married 1.5 years after her daughter was born, to a good man who accepted her child as his own. She sent Esteban an invitation, and, surprisingly, we went. It felt strange, but right, to show we held no grudges and wished her well. "Thank you for coming," she said at the wedding, walking up to us. "And thank you for everything, Esteban, for your help, for your understanding. You were better than I deserved." Esteban nodded. "Be happy, Esperanza. You deserve it." One day, when Sophia was 3, she asked, "Mama, Papa, do you love each other?" Esteban and I exchanged glances and smiled. "Yes, sunshine," I answered. "Very, very much." "And how did you meet?" I hesitated. Tell the truth, that it began with a lie, or invent a pretty story? Esteban took my hand and squeezed it. "We met in an unusual way," he began. "At first, we didn't understand each other and made mistakes, but then we learned to be honest and open. And now we're family." Sophia nodded, satisfied, and ran off to play with her toys. "Thank you," I whispered, "for not lying to her." "I don't lie anymore," Esteban said. "To anyone. Ever. I learned that because of you." I hugged him, and we sat for a long time holding hands, watching our daughter play. I thought about the incredible journey we had taken, from that night when he spoke and shattered all my illusions to today, when we were a happy family built on love and trust. Yes, we began with a lie. Yes, our marriage was founded on deception and manipulation. But we turned it into something real, something beautiful, because it's not how you start that matters, it's how you continue and how you finish. And our story, which began on that strange evening when the mute husband spoke, became a story of true love, love that endured deceit, doubts, and fears and survived, grew stronger, became genuine. Sometimes, as I fell asleep beside Esteban, I remembered that night, the moment the door closed behind us and he uttered his first words, words that destroyed my world but also gave birth to something new. I never regretted giving him a chance, never regretted not walking away when that would have been the easiest thing to do, because if I had, I would have missed this love, this family, this happiness we built together. Yes, it wasn't easy. Yes, there were times I wanted to give up, when it seemed simpler to start over with someone else than to rebuild broken trust. But I held on, we both held on, and it was worth it. Our story isn't a fairy tale with a flawless prince and perfect princess. It's the story of two ordinary people who made mistakes, hurt each other, doubted, but who, despite it all, chose each other, again and again chose to stay together, to work on the relationship, to build something real. And now, years after that fateful night, I can say with certainty, I'm happy. Truly, deeply happy. I have a husband who loves me and whom I love. I have a daughter who fills our lives with joy. I have a family, a real family, built on honesty and mutual respect. Sometimes my mother asks, "Have you forgiven me for that plan, for taking part in the deception?" And I always answer, "Yes, Mama. I've forgiven you, because despite the wrong methods, you helped me meet the man with whom I'm truly happy." Esteban often asks, "Do you ever regret not leaving back then, regret giving me a chance?" And I always say, "No, not once, because you were worth that chance." Our story is a story about forgiveness, about how people can change, grow, become better, about how mistakes don't define us. What matters is how we try to make them right. Our story is about trust, about how hard it is to rebuild once it's broken, but how possible it is if both people are willing to work, to be honest and open with each other. Our story is about love, real love that doesn't arrive at first sight, that isn't perfect or easy, that requires work, patience, and understanding, but that ultimately brings more happiness than any romantic fairy tale. And when one day Sophia grows up and asks me how to build a relationship the right way, I'll tell her our story, honestly, without embellishment. I'll tell her how we began with a lie but managed to build true love. I'll tell her that it's not how you start that matters, but how you go on. I'll tell her that forgiveness is not weakness but strength, that giving people a second chance isn't foolishness but wisdom, that love isn't only butterflies and a racing heart, but the daily work of tending the relationship, yourself, and your trust. And I hope that when she meets her person, she'll be wiser than we were, won't start with a lie, but build her relationship on honesty and openness from the start. But if something goes wrong, if she faces betrayal or deceit, I hope she'll remember our story and understand that things can be repaired if both people truly want it. Because that, wanting to be together in spite of everything, is real love. Not perfect, not from fairy tales, but real. The kind that lasts a lifetime. And when I watch Esteban playing with our daughter, laughing at her jokes, kissing her goodnight and telling her stories, I know I made the right choice, the choice to stay, to forgive, to give us a chance. Because love is a choice, not a feeling that comes and goes, but a daily decision to be there, to support, to love, to forgive. And I choose Esteban every day, just as he chooses me. And in the end, that's all that matters.
If you're enjoying it as well, leave a like and subscribe to the channel.